Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Buying into Brooklyn, and I'm the owner, Victoria Alexander of Realty Collective, a boutique real estate firm I started 19 years ago to defy the stereotypes associated with real estate brokers and real estate in general in New York City. I'm do not disturb. Thought about that part. This workshop is designed to outline the buying process in New York. It is no way comprehensive. So we're going to go over the process, but we cannot answer every little thing that is going to happen in the buying experience for you. But we are going to give you a nice overview of the first and initial steps that you need to make, and then just the main points to get going. New York real estate is different than anywhere else in the country. So if you've had an experience in California or North Carolina or Texas, it's nothing like those experiences here in New York. We're going to go over the very specific things that you need to prepare for here. And this is just a good starting place for you to get started with buying your own home and going on this journey. We'll share lots of resources and information so that you can make educated decisions and tear down the gatekeeping of information, which is often used as scary sales tactics to frighten you into working with certain people that might not be the best person for this job. You want to interview everybody and feel comfortable with who you're working with and that they're the right person for you. You want to making sure you feel empowered and educated. This is one of the biggest investments you'll make in your life, and you want to make sure you're making the right decisions for yourself and hire experts that you need to guide you and help you avoid mistakes, but also to make sure that you're making the right decisions for yourself. It's not necessarily you're going to make mistakes and ruin everything, but that this is a process that you need handholding for and expertise in. You're not an expert in real estate, and you should be hiring people that are to guide you through this process. Oh, Farah launched the poll. So where do you start? You start with your dream team. I'm going to be introducing those people in a second. Lisa and Rashida, who have worked with us for 50 to 100 deals, somewhere in that range. It's important to work with other strong women-owned businesses and people that have long-term relationships because there's accountability. And we want to make sure that communication and information is flowing throughout this deal process to keep everything on track. So that's why it's important to work with people that have long-standing relationships with each other and not this random person that has no interest in moving things forward and communicating properly to make sure that the continued rapport is there. It's super important because time is of the essence in a lot of these situations, and you want to make sure that everybody's responsive and communicating so that things stay on track. So I'm going to pass it to Rashida to go introduce herself and the work she does.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rashida Sadiq. I am a real estate attorney. I have been practicing for going on 20 plus years now. I represent a lot of first-time purchasers. So I always tell clients, if you have any questions, definitely reach out to me. As your attorney, I'm here to explain, as the attorney, I'm here to explain the process and the signing of the contract, what you should be looking at as you go into contract, and also the timeframes and things that you should be aware of. It is a pretty overwhelming experience, especially if it's your first time or even if it's your second or third time, because it is your finances and things like that that you're putting on the line. So you want to make sure that you understand the documents that you sign. My office is located physically downtown Brooklyn. However, I represent clients in all of the boroughs, also in Westchester, Southern New Jersey, and also in Nassau and Suffolk County. So just look forward to giving you guys an insight into what you should be looking at as first-time purchasers. There's also some new development in the real estate industry in downstate New York, what I call it, in regarding to after March 20th, some disclosures and things that would affect both buyers and sellers. So I'll go into that probably towards the end of as we're going to talk about contract. Look forward to giving you that information. And Lisa, go ahead and give your spiel.
Hey guys, I'm so sorry. I have a new computer and I'm not able to get my camera to work right now, which is a bummer, but I'm glad I'm here. So my name's Lisa. I'm a loan officer at Cross Country Mortgage. Cross Country works like all the big banks, but all we do is mortgages. Today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the do's and don'ts of the pre-approval process, the kind of products that are available, and how me and my team can help. I've been doing this for almost 10 years now. I really love working with first-time home buyers. This is a big deal, and it's really exciting to be part of the process with you guys. About 90% of my business is New York City business, so condos, co-ops, multifamily, single family. Basically, as long as it's a residential property, I can do it. I'm also licensed all over the country, so I do deals throughout the East Coast, but New York is really my hub and where I am. So looking forward to taking your questions and seeing how we can help.
Thanks so much, Lisa. And I'm Victoria Alexander, the owner of Real Estate Collective. I'm a buyer's and seller's broker. And so that means I'm your matchmaker, your therapist, your sounding board, whatever it takes to get you to meet your goals of being a homeowner in Brooklyn, if that's what they are, and according to what you think is important. There's lots of things that can happen in this. And so it's really important that the communication style and understanding and appreciation of how everybody wants to live is set up. So there's a lot of discussion about real estate broker fees right now for buyers and sellers because of the antitrust laws and antitrust cases that have been happening around the country, mostly with brokers that have been part of the NRA, which is the National Realtors Association. So in New York City, broker fees are always negotiable. And sellers recognize the importance of paying a buyer's broker. And this trend will likely persist. So you could assume without, unless said otherwise, that the broker fee will be included in the price, but your agent should be transparent with you about when listings do not have a commission included in them and when you'd be expected to cover those costs if that ever arose. If a commission for a buyer's broker fee hasn't been pre-negotiated for a property, your agent will inform you and ensure you receive the necessary professional support during the significant financial transaction, while also making sure the costs are consistent with market conditions. So there's several ways to crack that egg, but we can go into that specifically when we have our call to talk about those conditions. So these are the three people you need: a buyer's broker, a lawyer, and a mortgage professional to help guide you through this process. Having a buyer's agent is really important because we have a fiduciary responsibility to you. And so does the agent that's representing the seller. When you're looking online and agents' names on listings, they have their fiduciary responsibility to the seller, and they are looking out for the best interest of the seller. Interview these people, make sure you feel comfortable, that they can answer your questions, and that, at least it keeps getting kicked out. Our job is to guide you through this process, and personality type is important. Make sure it's somebody that you like and trust, and that you could take honest feedback from and listen to their advice, because if you can't, then that's probably not a good match for you. That's the big, like whenever you're hiring any sort of service professional. I had a call today with a design company, and I said that one of the biggest challenges, like when their clients just don't listen to them. And so what I like to start off the bat is that if you don't feel like you can hear advice and listen to advice from this person, then this is probably not a good match for you. But you also want to make sure you pick advisors that have relationships in the industry, especially in New York City, and people that have been in this industry for a long time. So making sure that you're hiring somebody that knows all the other brokers, so that when you put in an offer, they recognize your name. Do not hire your uncle that just got his law license, that practices divorce on a day-to-day basis. You want someone that this is their main source of income, that this is the thing that's bread and butter, and what they do every day is real estate transactions, not anything else. You want an expert in this field. So why buy now? Next slide. Sorry. If you're looking to stay in New York for the next 3 to 5 years, then buying is your best investment. I had a really great conversation with a mortgage professional today just about how close that these numbers are for you, and that everybody that keeps trying to time the market gets tripped up by it. And so if you can do it, pull the trigger. Even with interest rates where they are, interest rates are going to come down, prices are going to go up. Everything influxes. Get in while you can, because the longer you stay out of the market, the longer you're leaving yourself out from getting the appreciation from buying a property. But if you want to know that this is going to be a good decision for you, we do have this link to the rent versus buy matrix that Farah is going to put in the chat for you to figure out if renting or buying makes more sense for you. If you are in a rent stabilized or rent controlled apartment, it might not make sense to. There's this again. Dream team is assembled. You've picked your professionals you want to work with. There might be some other people you might need to work with, like an inspector, a contractor, an architect. And if you need to talk to an architect, I'm having a class next week with some architects I really called Makeshift. And we have other people that we can recommend all on this list for you. You're ready to move forward. So what happens first? Even though you want to be going to open houses first, what you really need to do is get your pre-approval together. And your pre-approval comes from your mortgage professional to figure out what your buying power is. And that is the first step before you go see property in real life. So I'm going to turn it over. And so this is not street easy. And if you're self-employed, it is important to talk to a mortgage professional, because even mortgage calculator that you see online is not going to give you real numbers. So do not be relying on these little calculators from Street Easy and Zillow and Trulia to and help you understand what your buying power is. You want to talk to somebody and get ahead of that, so that if you're going to be ready to buy in the next year, establish a relationship now so that you're putting your best foot forward, especially if you work for to make sure that you're taking in all the tax considerations to present yourself in the best light to the banks. So these are a couple of things that I would think Lisa's going to cover. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Lisa.
Okay, so I'm gonna do this from my phone and hopefully you guys can hear me okay. If not, let me
We
know and I'll
can.
go back to the computer. You can?
Yes, we can.
Woohoo! Okay, so yes, the first step in your process is to get pre-approved. And why that's important is because it's really important to know what your buying power is before you go and look at places. You don't want to see a place that is way above your price range in terms of what you can be pre-approved for, because that's not really fun. You also want to make sure that maybe you're not undercutting the buying power you have if you want to go that high. Also, in this market, most places are going to require a pre-approval even before you see the place, because they want to know that you have been vetted and that you actually have the funds to purchase the property if you want. Pre-approval is actually a very personal sort of conversation. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about what kind of place you're looking for, if you have an idea right now, how much you have for a down payment, what your employment history is. Are you self-employed? If you're self-employed, that's okay. I work with self-employed borrowers all the time. If you are self-employed and you're looking to buy within the next year, now is the perfect time to talk to me or another mortgage professional, because we want to take a look at your taxes before you file. Numbers can be changed around in conversation with me and your accountant before you file your taxes. After you file your taxes, that's the income for this year. And while if you're self-employed, we can add some things back in. The general rule is the income that you are taxed on, that you're paying taxes on, is what we can use to qualify. So that's why we want to have that conversation before you file your taxes, if possible. Are you going to get your down payment? Is it all coming from your funds? Is it coming from a gift? Again, that's totally okay, but that's what we're going to talk about. And then we're going to talk about a variety of programs. One thing really cool about me and Cross Country Mortgage is that we have almost over 90 products. So I can really figure out the right one for you rather than fitting you into that one 30-year or ARM product that I have. There are special first-time homebuyers programs. We actually have a unique cross-country first-time home buying program that gives you up to $6,500 in free money. We'll see if you qualify for that. There's also State of New York first-time homebuyer programs where we're one of the preferred lenders. And that is income restricted, but again, you can get up to $15,000 of free money to help you for the down payment. There's also how much do you want to put down? Conventionally, it's 20%. Co-ops typically require 20%, but you can put down 10, 5, or even as low as 3.5% with FHA. We're really going to have a discussion about what you think you might want to buy and then what you can be qualified for in terms of programs. I'm then going to get some documents from you, crunch the numbers, and then get you that pre-approval. Now, the pre-approval is really a working draft. So as you start to see more things with Victoria and really fine tune what you want, we will update that pre-approval based on what you're finding and where you think you're really going to buy. Few important things about the pre-approval. The pre-approval is a financial snapshot based on the documents you gave me at the time that we've done the pre-approval. So that means if your job changes, if you get a new car, if you open a new credit card, these are all things that you want to talk to me about before you do them. That doesn't mean you can't do them. That means that it's going to change your financial picture, and I need to know about it before you do it so that you know if this will affect the pre-approval we've done, and if so. That's about it. And then we'll get you that pre-approval, and then you'll start looking at things with Victoria, and we'll go from there. One actually important question that that's come up more recently is when you do have a down payment, if a gift is coming from a family member, first of all, that gift, it's not for IRS purposes. It's that per federal compliance, a bank has to source where all your money is coming from. So we call it a gift because it's coming into your account from somebody else's account. Totally fine, happens all the time. The problem comes into play is if the gift that you're getting from dad is $10,000, that's cash in the shoebox that he's just saved over time, that's a problem. And that's something we need to talk about because cash can't be sourced. Again, it's not like any of these things are deal breakers per se, but these are things we're going to have conversations about during our time, and then you'll get that pre-approval and go from there.
Thanks so much, Lisa. I just want to highlight the one thing that is really important. Oh, I'm going to mute whoever just jumped in here. Sorry, is hiring New York City experts. I know that it's easy to look at Quicken or Rocket online as mortgage professionals, but it's really important because especially if you're buying in a co-op to hire someone locally that understand the New York City specific requirements. You don't want to hire somebody that, like any of these online platforms, the process is just so complicated as it is. To use an online platform will just cost you time, energy, and add a lot of stress to the process because things are so unique here. Same thing with a lawyer. You want somebody that's very specific to New York City and that understands the market and challenges, especially with co-ops and condos. This person, you're going to make sure you're talking to them, you're going to talk to them a lot. So you want to make sure you like them and you like talking to them and communicate with them. And that is a personal process with a lot of moving parts. You want a real human being there. So moving on, Farah's going to send you a lot of resources. So now you're ready. You've gotten your pre-approval and you're ready to get out there. So you're going to ask yourselves a couple of things like, how fast do you want to do this? Is your lease up tomorrow or is it up in a year? Do you want to just start looking and understanding what the market is and start saving on your down payment and trying to get everything aligned so that you're ahead of the game? Or are you like, my lease is up and we need to move in 4 months. Let's get this show on the road. You tell us how fast you want to move. And how long are you going to live there? You're going to live in this house for 3 to 5 years, or are you going to live there for 1 year? Take those things. Is this your forever home, or are you going to be trading up in a couple of years to get into something that's closer to work, to get more space, to better school district, all things you need to consider. So that's the other things that come into it. Family lifestyle. Do you want to buy something close to the park, buy shops and restaurants? Are you willing to buy in a B or C neighborhood to get more appreciation for your purchase and investment over time? Are you interested in buying something that needs work? All things to take into consideration when you are out there looking and considering what neighborhoods might be of interest to you. Finding your dream home. Farah's going to share a little link to the different types of property that are available in New York and the different kinds of housing stock. Lost my light. There's a couple different things to take into consideration, which is the neighborhood, and then the type of amenities you want, and the type of building that you want. So do you want a property that has a doorman, historic detail? You're probably going to want to be in Prospect Lefferts Gardens or Prospect Heights that has co-op buildings with doormen and historic details. If you want new construction, you're probably going to be in Gowanus or in Williamsburg. So understanding the amenities you want aligned with the building typology, and then what neighborhoods will it be available to. And maybe those things aren't driving your search process. Maybe it is really location. So what is available within the neighborhood that you're interested in? If you're dead set on Cobble Hill, what can you really buy there? Is it co-ops and condos, or is it townhouses? And can you afford those things? So I always tell people to make their list of 5 deal breakers, and the deal breakers, then you realize that you only were going to get 1 or 2 of them, because this is still New York City and it's challenging to buy things here, especially in your price point. So, and you have to, on top of that, you need to take into your consideration your closing costs, which, and new construction. Mostly it's only condos, unless somebody did a design to build townhouse from top to bottom. You're probably going to be looking at condos, and then there's a bunch of other fees that go along with that, which I'll let Rashida dive into. Sellers also have closing costs on their end too. And so that's why we encourage people to think about how long they're going to hold the property to reach your break-even horizon, which means your closing costs on your buy side and closing costs on your sell side. With the appreciation of the property that you're going to buy and then sell, are you going to break even when you are exiting this process to trade up or leave New York City? But now, where do you find your home? Search. Where are you searching? A lot of people, you can write in the chat. I would love to hear, or on the poll. I think that's one of our questions. Are you looking on Redfin? A lot of people are telling me Redfin. Like, why are you using Redfin? It's not very comprehensive. It's not very user-friendly. And it's not, they don't update their information. They're using a lot of that information to bait people there, and Trulia and Zillow. They're all similar platforms. For New York City, I highly recommend StreetEasy as the most up-to-date information, usually the most user-friendly. You used to be able to save folders. You can't do that anymore. You can do, which is a new platform called homes.com, but we use a backend database. Agreed, StreetEasy. Yeah. We use a backend database through REBNY, which is the Real Estate Board of New York, that puts all of the REBNY brokers, so all Corcoran, Compass, Brown Harris Stephen, all their listings are in one place. And that is through something called the RLS. I would say that, or it's also called CitySnap. I think the public facing one is called CitySnap. But I think anything that you are available to share with other people, so you can share the listings. When we're working together, I just say, okay, I'm going to set everything up for you. You tell me when you're available. You just send over the listings. I'll contact the brokers. I'll schedule the appointments. Everything's going to be done. It doesn't matter where the link comes from. I can figure out who the real listing broker is, even if someone has paid, because sometimes, like on Redfin or Trulia, people pay to have their name on listings that are not theirs because they're trying to get the business. So they're asking, you're calling somebody that has nothing to do actually with the property. And I think StreetEasy does that also, because through the StreetEasy Experts program. But you want to just make sure that you are picking a broker yourself. There's nothing wrong with calling those people, but at the end of the day, you should be vetting who you're working with, the buyer's broker that you choose to work with. Don't let the internet choose for you. Do your homework so that you're making this process as stress-free as possible, because you could end up with a real frustrating situation. I'll just put it that way. Going over where you search. The days are over of hidden listings. Like, the internet has made everything transparent. There is rules against off-market listings and things that can be marketed as, not access to everybody. So those days are over. Your job as from your real estate professional is not to find you something that you can't find. It's to guide you through this process with expert advice from hopefully a long time of industry expertise that they've garnered, and that you will never have, even if you've read every article on the internet. Speaking of, we have a great blog that I've put all of the resources that go to each part of the process into a library, that if you're working with us through Basecamp, which is a project management tool, to help you at each step of the way have the resources that are New York City specific at your fingertips. So there's no searching and Googling and going all over the place to find your resources. No more gatekeeping on information. You should be working with people that are sharing information freely with you to make you feel empowered and trust the process. You shouldn't be like anybody withholding information. Oh, the other problems with Trulia and Zillow, sometimes they say co-ops or condos, and condos or co-ops. They also don't always have the correct tax information. So you want to make sure you're double checking that with who you're working with. Like I said, we can set up the search for you and aggregate the information through CitySnap or the backend RLS program. And I went over whose name's on the listings, not always the person you think you're calling or who they're representing. So that's why it's important that you just find a broker, you send them the listings, and they do all the digging for you, make sure they're calling the right people.
because you don't want to call the seller's broker also because they represent the seller. Yes, what you want to work with a buyer's broker that represents you and your best interest, and make sure that you ask the right questions at each step of the way and during the process to create a competitive offer strategy from when you're ready to, instead of just looking at things, make an offer and move forward. So we've done all our searching. We've gone out and looked at apartments. You finally found one that you like, even though there was a line of 15 people out the door yesterday. Just, not yesterday, Sunday, because it's Tuesday, and you've only been looking for 2 weeks, but you want to put an offer in. So there's 3 documents I expect you to have, which is the revenue submit offer form, your cover letter, and your pre-approval letter. So that's why it's important you start with those things out the gate before you even go look at things. And then we start talking about existing market conditions and the comps to make sure that you're getting an offer in that is going to be competitive, but also that you're not going to be overpaying for, unless you understand what the upmarket appreciation will be and trying to capture that so that you are just evaluating your offer based on future value. Also, you need to get things to appraise. And that's a whole other quandary that we'll have to jump into when we talk one-on-one. And one of the main resources of working with a buyer's broker is the relationships with other broker. One of the ways you're going to get your bid accepted is that when I know somebody else on the other deal, they know, they're like, oh, Victoria, I've done so many deals with you. I know how you operate in a deal. I can trust that when you say this is going to happen, this is going to happen. And that makes them feel more confident in moving forward with the deal with my buyer over somebody else's that have that's why you don't want to work with somebody that straight out of the gate, only been in this business a year, no matter how savvy of a negotiator they are, that aspect is really valuable in today's market. They just want confidence in the deal and confidence in the buyer and the buyer's side of the deal. So making sure that they work with somebody that has past experience with them is more likely to happen than with a broker that they don't know. And you want to work on your negotiation strategy. There are several ways to go about going into a property that has 15 people out the door waiting to get in. When you show up on a Sunday, there's possibly going to be a bidding war, but you could also beat the bidding war by going in, being the first offer in. And that's a strategy I often encourage to buyers, is if they're prepared, that has a psychological effect on sellers. Then you go over some contract terms. What are your contingencies? How much money are you putting down? Are you going to do an inspection? Is there a financing contingency? Is the sale as is? Does it come with the lamp that's in the middle of the room? And once that's all figured out, then the deal sheets go out to the lawyers. And I'm going to hand it over to Rashida and Lisa to say, okay, now deal sheets are out and we're doing the inspection on our end. What's happening over there? Take it away, Rashida.
So I normally tell clients that I am the third person in this transaction. So you have found your property, you've got pre-approved by your lender, you have found your property with your realtor. The basic terms have been negotiated, such as the purchase price, whether it's going to be contingent on a mortgage, the amount you're putting down, if there's things included, and that information is going on that deal sheet, which goes out to, as Victoria said, the seller's attorney and the buyer's attorney. So the most part of the contract, the most part of the deal has been negotiated. However, before you get into contract, which is the next part, there's a couple of things that have to happen. So what are we going about getting you into contract, which is the next slide. Getting you into contract. If you're looking at a co-op or a condo, your attorney is going to have to do due diligence on the property. That due diligence comprises of reviewing the documents for the building, such as the offering plan, the financials, the board meeting minutes, asking questions of the co-op management company or condo management company, or if it's self-managed, the person on the board. During that due diligence period, the object is to try to find out as much information about the building that you're going to be potentially an owner in, because this is a co-op or a condo. So you're going to be owning property with other unit owners, other individuals. So you want to find out, is the maintenance increased history? Is there litigation? Is there noise issues? And these are things that you don't know when you put in your offer. So during that due diligence, if something comes up, you do have a right to not proceed with the contract and sign, and you have a right to withdraw your offer. So it's very important that your attorney does that due diligence and gets as much information as possible. Now, everything is not 100% guaranteed, but it's hopefully to get enough that you're able to make an informed decision on pursuing to the next step of signing a contract of sale. That due diligence, when you're looking at a co-op or a condo, takes roughly about a week. Sometimes it can be longer depending on the management company, depending on how quickly information is given to your attorney. Also, during that due diligence is you want to do an inspection of the property. So if you're looking at a house, co-op, or condo, I always advise clients to get an inspection because you are going to be the new owner of the property. So you want to understand, what are you buying? Some realtors don't, sometimes if they're looking at a co-op or a condo, they may say, no, it's not, you shouldn't do one, but I know I've worked with Victoria and I know they typically do advise their clients to do an inspection because once again, you don't know about what's going on in the interior. Yes, the co-op and the condo association is responsible for the building and the hallways, but you're typically responsible for that internal part of your unit. And if you're buying a house, you're going to be responsible for everything in that house. I mentioned earlier that there's going to be some new guidelines going into effective as of next week, March 20th. And this really affects downstate properties in New York. It has been upstate New York. Realtors have been providing buyers and sellers what we call a property condition disclosure form that the seller fills out. And it's supposed to give basically a history or understanding of answers that the seller has to give regarding the property. This does not apply to condos or co-ops. So if you're looking at a co-op or a condo, it doesn't apply to your type of transaction. And even if it only applies to residential houses, and even with the residential house, it tells you specifically in that disclosure that the seller is filling out that you cannot rely on that disclosure, that you should do your own inspection and independently verify the condition of the property because you are purchasing the property as is. So regardless, as a buyer, you want to do an inspection. Your contract is going to provide that you purchased the property as is, that you waived your inspection or you've done the inspection and you understand the condition of the property. All of this happens prior to you signing that contract. If something comes up in that inspection, then it's an opportunity for you to negotiate for the seller to fix the items or negotiate a reduction in the price or a credit. So it's very important that you understand and you do this inspection. And in New York, as I said, it's done prior to you signing the contract. So that due diligence, if it's the co-op or a condo, finding out everything about the building, the financials, the things, that's important, as well as doing the inspection. If it's a house, prior to you getting into contract, you do your inspection. Some attorneys, I particularly like to also look up the property to see if there's any violations or things that are public records that I can advise a buyer about. But these are things that you want to hopefully find out prior to you signing the contract. Now, once all of this due diligence is completed and your inspection is completed, so that's been negotiated, everything's well with the inspection, or things have come up and you've negotiated for credit or the seller to fix items or a reduction in the price, the next step is getting you into contract. What happens that you're in contract? Your contract is going to have certain provisions. Typically, the main provisions are your financing contingency, which typically provides that you have 30 to 45 days for you to obtain a mortgage commitment. So even though you've been pre-approved by your loan officer, your loan person still has to officially get a commitment letter from the bank. And that process under the contract, you have 30 to 45 days. If you're not able to get it within that 30 to 45 day period, then you have a right to cancel the contract and get the return of the deposit. So very important why it's important to have a mortgage contingency in there. Part of that mortgage is also the appraisal on the property. So that's also one of the things that your loan officer the bank will order through once you are in contract. Other provisions in the contract that are going to be contingent on if you're buying a house, or it's called title search. Title search means that there's no violations, no judgment, there's no issues with the transfer of the property to you. And that's also for a condominium. If it's a co-op, it's called a lien search. So they're looking to see if there's any judgments, mortgages that will affect the premises, because the seller has to clear all of that up by the time you get to a closing time period. So although now that you're in contract, you signed it, these provisions, your timeframes of getting you your mortgage, 30, 45 days, that title report, your attorney's going to order, review the title to make sure that there's no issues with that. If it's a co-op or a condo, your co-op or condo, there may be a board application that has to be submitted that your realtor will assist you with putting together. And all of this also has to be done within a certain time frame of the closing, which in New York is on or about 60 days for a house, on or about for a house or a condominium, and typically around 60 to 90 days for a co-op. We're in contract. Lisa can talk about a little bit what happens regarding that mortgage contingency of that 30 to 45 day period, what they typically do during that time period. And then we'll go back into after the co-op application or the condo application, and then the next steps after that.
Cool. Yeah. So we have fully executed contracts. Woohoo! Very exciting day. Rashida has done all of her due diligence and things look good. You guys have signed, seller has signed, and then that's what I say we now have a live deal, which means we are going to get you through underwriting as quickly as possible so that we can meet that mortgage contingency deadline that's in the contract. I will say that I think this is one of the places where me and my team really shine because we're just incredibly fast. One of the reasons we're incredibly fast is because you have given me a lot of documents up front that I've already reviewed and analyzed. So at this point, we're just getting updated documents from you so that we can have a nice complete file when it gets into underwriting. So along with so first, once we have a live deal, we're going to order the appraisal. Rashida's right, the appraisal is ordered by the bank and it's different than the inspection. The inspection is for you to see warts and all what's going on with the property. The appraisal is for the bank to see the value of the property, to make sure that the loan is within the terms of the estimated value of the property. I will say that very rarely do I ever see an appraisal come in low in New York. It's pretty rare. And typically when it does, we have a sense that it might beforehand and we have other options in place. Along with the appraisal, and then you're going to work with my partner, Danielle, to get any last things we need so that we can get you into underwriting. Once you get through underwriting, which for us is usually 3 to 4 days once you submit it to the underwriter, you're going to get a mortgage commitment letter. That commitment letter is going to have conditions, proof of insurance. You have to pay for your first year of insurance for the property you're buying prior to or at closing. It might have an updated pay stub. It might have various conditions that is just little things from you that the underwriter needs in order to get you to clear the close. At the same time that we're doing all of this, we are also approving the project, the co-op or the condo, because a bank has to both approve you and approve the building. Now, just like I did diligence with you on the pre-approval process, when you tell me the property that you like, I'm going to do some research on the property and make sure that there are no red flags in our database with that building. Simultaneously, Rashida, when she does her due diligence, will reach out to me if she thinks of anything that might be an issue. A big one is litigation, of course. This is one of those times when working with people who work together a lot is at the end of the day really in your benefit. Because 9 times out of 10, if there's a problem with the building, I can find a way around it. It's about finding out about it sooner rather than later. Once we get the project approved and once we get you approved, then you're buying a single family once we get you approved. If we're buying a condo or co-op, once we get the project approved, then you have a beautiful, nice commitment letter with very little conditions, and then you are ready to submit your board package. Now, let's just talk about rate for 1 second. Rates are obviously higher than 3 years ago or 4 years ago. You're not seeing rates of 2 or 3% anymore. That's just non-existent. It was a fluke. The good news is that rates are down from where they were 2 years ago. So we're starting to see a downward trajectory that is something we've been waiting for a while, and we're very excited because this means that we're starting to get into a lower rate, stabler environment. What I'll always say, like Victoria said at the beginning, you marry the property, you date the rate. which means that we are going to refinance you when rates go significantly down, which all my loans that I'm doing now, we are preparing to refinance within 1 to 2 years. So that, and actually we're going to give you a credit when you refinance to help with some of the closing costs on the bank end, because we know you're going to want to refinance. But it's also really important to know, particularly if you're buying a co-op, that locking the rate is a bit of a dance. It is because you have to get board approval. And like Rashida and Victoria will tell you, we'll be super ready and Victoria will help you with the board package, and then you're going to go in for your interview. And sometimes co-op boards say, come in tomorrow. And sometimes they say, the first time that we can meet with you is in 30 days. And there's no wiggle room there. You got to go by what the co-op said. So that 60 to 90 days for closing, a big part of it is the speediness of the co-op rather than the speediness of the bank. And that's just something that we'll totally talk about if you decide to go the co-op route as we get your file prepared for underwriting. But then we will have this commitment letter. You will work on the board interview and any last conditions. And then what everyone's waiting for is the clear to close. And when we have the clear to close, that means that the bank is ready. We are ready to close. And Rashida will start working to schedule the closing. And then you guys will work with Victoria on final walkthrough.
So thank you, Lisa. So yes, Victoria will talk a little bit about if you're looking at a co-op or a condo, one of the things in your contract for a co-op is that the contract is contingent on that board approval. Once you get that commitment letter, the contract provides that your co-op application has to be submitted within 5 business days. If you're looking at a condo, the condo typically application needs a copy of that commitment letter, also should be submitted right after that. And your agent, your realtor will be the ones putting together that packet and working with you to submit that application.
There'll be a lot happening behind the scenes, but the meat and the potatoes of this situation is really that Rashida and Lisa are going to be working to get your billing approved, your project approved, your mortgage approved with the bank, making sure that all of the title search and all that stuff is done while we're working, if it is a co-op, on your co-op package to present to the board and prepping you for your co-op interview. That's something we want to prepare you for and educate you about those steps that need to happen. But really, my job is at the front end of this process where I'm helping you get into contract, get you to the closing table is the last of this, which is Lisa and Rashida's job. But in the beginning, it's coaching you about the process, educating you about the process, and getting you to win the bid when you put in an offer on the property that you are madly in love with, and then getting your offer accepted. Then we'll do a final walkthrough right before the closing. And then you get the keys. And then one thing we always remind people is do not schedule your move on the day of your closing. Don't let add any extra pressure to this already stressful process by trying to do everything all in one day and get out of your current place and stop paying your rent. So make sure that those timelines are not affecting you, because things can happen. Rashida and I had, I think Lisa too, with a buyer that the originating mortgage from the seller was transferred to another bank, and it delayed our whole process by 6 weeks. This poor buyer could not close when they thought and had to stay in their apartment. So just make sure that there's all these things that are outside of your control what you can, and that is not scheduling your move on your closing date. So I'm going to open up for questions now and go over. My dog is getting into trouble behind me. Go over a couple things. At the end of this, you will get a copy of the recording of this presentation. You'll get a bunch of our resources. You'll get access to our Basecamp process if you decide to work with us. You're going to get a Calendly link to schedule a call with me or any of the other presenters here today. This will be available on YouTube and Spotify for anybody else that wants to share it with their friends and family. I think I covered everything about the different resources. The Homebuyer's Handbook. You'll get a copy of that too. Go ahead and share it around. It's a dense book I wrote about the buying process. So I'm going to open up for questions. I want to thank everybody for joining us. We do these monthly, and there's a Selling in Brooklyn class too that we're doing on Thursday. And a class with the architects next week, makeshift. So any questions? You can take yourself off mute or put them in the chat, or we'd lose you all at closing table. I thought I heard someone take themselves off mute. Oh, hey, Matt. What's your perspective on buying into co-ops with a land lease? Depends on the terms of the land lease, so I'll let Rashida talk about the risks of that
Yeah.
situation.
Yes, so I've represented several clients over the years that have their certain co-ops that do have land leases. So that's one of the main things that when your attorney is doing the due diligence, we want to find out, when does that land lease expire? Does it have renewal terms already negotiated? If they don't, depending on how long that land lease is, it's something that you should really consider, because if the maintenance is, let's say, 1,500 now, and that land lease is about to expire in the next 10 years. Now that means that the co-op is going to have to renegotiate these terms, which may mean a huge spike in your maintenance. I think there was a co-op in the city where the maintenance would have increased by nearly 200, 300%, which is significant. And it also devalue the property, because if they can't negotiate that land lease, then what happens to the shares of the individuals in the co-op? So it's really important to really understand how long does that land lease, when's the expiration, if there's terms that have been negotiated already, or where they are with the process. So it's not 100% a deal breaker, but it's just about being informed on, as I said, those type of time periods, on where they are negotiating, how long it's going to be, if there's already some terms on what the potential renewal that the co-op's going to have to pay to the land lease owner.
Thanks, Rashida. The next question is, can you find a property on your own? Do you have to use a realtor? No, you don't have to use a realtor. A realtor is a trademark name. Realtor is for the National Realtor Association. I'm not a realtor. I'm not a member of the National Realtor Association. But to find a property, you don't need to use a broker. But you are missing out on all of their expertise and knowledge to help you guide you through this process. If you've never done it in New York, there are lots of things that are common knowledge to me that just you wouldn't think of because you've never done it. It's just a complicated process here in New York. So you can find the property and try to put an offer yourself. The other thing is that other brokers want to work with other brokers. They have much more confidence in a deal with another broker on the other end, because they know that that client is being coached and guided through this process, and that's work that they don't have to do. And then they're more confident the deal is actually going to close because they know they have a professional on the other side. So you can do whatever you want. Is your best interest, especially if the seller is covering the cost of working with a buyer's broker. Not in every case that they are, but that to work with somebody, there's not a lot of reasons not to. Good. I'm glad that answered your questions. If you run a company out of your home, how much percentage of your corporate and personal salaries come into play in regarding to down payment and mortgage loan amount? I don't know if that affects it, but I'll let Lisa jump in here.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So it doesn't really matter if you're working from your home. Really, it's about the income that you're declaring on your business and personal tax returns. If you're doing a Schedule C, all of your business income is going to be on your personal tax return. If you have a corporation where you file a business return, you typically get a K-1, which is then part of your personal return. And some of the deductions that you take off of those business or Schedule C returns can be added in. The easiest question is actually for me to have a meeting with you and take a look at your taxes. And I can let you know because it's hard to just say abstractly. Actually looking at the forms, I can let you know what your income is. And then if that's not enough, again, we could have a conference with your CPA or your accountant if someone helps with your taxes of how we can get that number. I hope that helps.
I thought that was a great answer. Yeah, I think that these are also great questions. Feels like really people are really engaged and asking really great questions. We've been hearing a lot about ARMs. Yeah, it can be advantage with these high rates. Is it still true if you anticipate refinancing in the short term?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. So almost all of the deals I'm doing now are ARMs, simply because if you're going to be refinancing in 1 to 2 years, which is probably going to happen, but we can have a conversation about if we think that's going to happen or not. Something like a 5 or 7 year ARM is giving you a fixed rate for significantly longer than you're actually going to use on the loan. Now, sometimes a 30-year rate is the better option, but 9 times out of 10, particularly for higher loan amounts, an ARM is going to give you a better rate. And again, it's gonna be fixed for typically 5, 7, or 10 years.
Thank you.
Thanks. That's a really great question, Emily. And I think that a lot, which is better, a lender or a bank? I'm going to answer that so that Lisa doesn't have to. I always encourage people to shop around. You're going to have more options at a mortgage with a mortgage professional lender situation. Unless you are at a bank that you have a large sum of money at, you have $1 million, they're going to give you a really great rate because they want you to keep your rest of your money in their account and not move it around. So they're going to give you a much better, more competitive rate than a lender can if you have this large sum of money. Most people are not in that situation. So I think it's important to talk to mortgage professionals that understand your specific circumstances that are going to offer you multiple different products. Most banks only have a certain amount of small products that they can offer. So it's why I always encourage people to talk to Lisa, at least get an idea. You can talk to many people and shop around and understand the different terms that are, it's not just about the ARM, right? It's about the rate lock terms. Is there points? Is there a prepayment penalty? There are lots of things that are coming to these mortgage products that you need to be advised on. And that's why talking to somebody that has access to many products is going to be to best advantage. And you can talk to more than one person, just like you're going to talk to more than one buyer's broker and more than one lawyer, and you're going to pick the right person for you. This is just about educating you on the process and that we are available. And if you'd liked working with us, we're a great team, but you want to pick people that you feel confident in making the next steps with. I hope that answered your question. And Lisa, do you want to jump in now that I've covered it for you?
No, I think that was totally great. And yeah, I think that you really need to make sure you work with people that you're comfortable with. I think you also need to make sure to look up people's reviews and see what former clients have said. That's going to give you a really good idea. Obviously, you want the lowest rate. You also want for the mortgage process to be as smooth as quickly as possible. That's going to help a lot of the headaches down the line. With everything, do your research, look online, go with your gut, talk to people. If people are responsive, that's a good sign. If they're not, that's a sign of something else too, and you need to know about. And then, I think just keep an open conversation. And just also, and really make sure you have a team that you trust, because this is a big deal. This is probably more money than you spent on anything in your entire life. And you need to really make sure that you like and trust the people you're with.
Yeah.
I actually have to jump. I'm sorry, I gotta
Go
get
ahead,
my
Lisa.
kids out of babysitting,
Yeah,
but you guys have my contact information. And just like with Victoria, I always forget to say this, talking to us is free. So don't feel like you have to you don't want to talk to a mortgage professional because they're gonna charge you $500 to be.
Yeah,
Talking
don't
is
worry
always
about wasting
free,
our
and I'm
time.
always happy to talk to someone if it's like this year, next year, 10 years from now.
Somebody asked me, bye, Lisa, thank you so much. Somebody asked me today, like, what was my longest client experience? It was 5 years. I was like, it doesn't matter. This is a journey. It just takes some people that long to get there. I'm happy to support you for all of that process. And Lisa does bring up a good point. Look at online reviews. You want someone that has glorious review after review. If there's a red flag in there, run the other way. Because I think that probably is, it's not always, if there's only one of them, then it could be the reviewer. But I would say if you're seeing a couple of those, so do look at online reviews, but ask friends and family like who they worked with and they liked, and interview them and feel like who is the right person for you. Other questions before we sign up? So I'm just checking the chat. Nope, just people saying thanks. So I think that's it. And yeah, Emily, do you have another question, or you're saying bye?
Oh, I do have a question. I was about to type it in. It's a bit general, but we have school age kids, or almost school age kids. We've got twins who are 2.5. We just finished 3K applications and we'll be seeing what options we have about 9 weeks, I think, and then anticipating potentially thinking about 3K and then K applications in the coming application cycles. And yeah, we're familiar with doing the diligence now on the public schools around us and getting on all the tours and all of that. But yeah, that's something that'll factor into our process. Do you have advice generally about how to think of the public school process in New York City alongside the process of thinking about housing?
My husband's a teacher.
Or home buying. Oh,
Complicated.
cool.
Yeah, conversation, because realtors can't say if schools are good or bad. They can't get, because
Right.
and what school districts the property is in. For me, I always tell people to, yes, school is important, but schools change, like ratings change and things happen. And to buy to something that you feel most comfortable with the other quality of life things that they offer, because and try to, if you can, stay away from buying in co-ops, just because that if you were like, okay, we bought our dream apartment and now we're like, was hoping the school was going to come together and it didn't, and we want to be closer to this school or that school, or my kid has special, like all these things change. You can rent
Yeah.
out a condo and and rent it out and rent somewhere in the school district you want to be in until you're ready to sell. And you can't do that with a co-op. And you can do that
Right.
with a house also. I know a lot of people that have done that to say, okay, we wanted to buy something, but we didn't want the school to keep us from buying something. So we just bought our dream apartment. And then when our kids were ready, we tackled that. And if they needed to, they rented out their apartment that they lived in, and they rented somewhere else until they, once their kids are in and there's a certain, then all like siblings are in, like you can move back. And
Cool.
yeah, like, because then I think that they prefer to keep kids in the schools that they are, even if they move out of the district or something like that. There's some other rules, but I think all those rules also change all the time.
Yeah, this has been a wild year to be thinking about this stuff with the proposed cuts to 3K on the table. But thank you. I appreciate the info.
Yeah. I'm going to assume that, like Lisa said also, is don't feel like you're wasting your time. You can give us a call. We can talk about any of this and prepare you to start this journey. If it's in 6 months, 9 months, but hopefully not 5 years. I'm happy to help in any way I can. You're not bothering us. You're not a burden. Like, this is information that's important for you to take the first next steps. And home buying is like, makes you a stakeholder, builds equity and wealth and generational wealth for your family. Making that time to make those phone calls and invest in yourself is super important. So I'm glad you all showed up for yourselves today. Thanks again for joining us, and reach out if you need anything. Have a good night.